أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على حي على الفلاح. حي على الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد. All praises and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Peace and blessings be upon our Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Peace and blessings be upon his family, upon his companions, upon all of us who are here, and all those who follow him until the end of time. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Quran, in a very beautiful verse of the Quran, which needs a deep commentary from our scholars, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in Surah Al-Hajj, towards the end, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ هُوَ اجْتَبَاكُمْ وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ مِلَّةَ أَبِيكُمْ إِبْرَاهِيمَ هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. and then to the end of the verse. Before we talk about this verse, the importance of this verse, we need to understand that this verse is from the chapter on pilgrimage, the chapter of Hajj. And brothers and sisters, Hajj is a seasonal time for us Muslims. And it is one of the most important pillars of Islam. It is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And whoever is able to make that pilgrimage should do so. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, this chapter was revealed. Although this chapter focuses on the significance, focuses on various elements of Hajj, this chapter starts off with giving us a reminder about our meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It starts off with the danger, the darkness, the scariness of the Day of Judgment. On that day, people will be so concerned about themselves that if a mother was carrying her child, she would let go of her child. This chapter was also revealed at a time where the Muslims, they were facing tyranny, they were facing a struggle from Quraysh, from the tribe of Quraysh and their people and their allegiance, the people who made allegiance with them, the ones that were against the Muslims. So the Muslims, they were barred from performing Hajj at that time. And the Muslims, they were yearning to go back to Mecca. They were yearning to go back to the Kaaba, to remember Ibrahim alayhi salam, to remember their legacy, to remember what they stood for and what they stand for. And aside from this, amongst all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the last verse of Surah Al-Hajj. Why is this verse important? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِ. If you think about this verse, people might think about fighting. People might think about their personal struggle in terms of spirituality, their personal struggle in terms of finances. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that and strive for Allah with the striving that is due to Him. It means that whatever that we do in our life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَمَنْ جَاهَدَ فَإِنَّمَا يُجَاهِدُ لِنَفْسِهِ, that whatever that you do, whatever struggle that you go through, it is for yourself. It is for yourself. And if you succeed, if you become triumphant, then it's for yourself. Then you gain that success. But if you fail, it's because of yourself. You failed because it was of your mistakes. But then towards the chapter of Surah Ankabut, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. That when we struggle, what type of struggle are we talking about? Because in the United States of America, in New York City, in the life of a teenager, in the life of a young person, in the life of a young professional, in the life of a person who just married, or in the life of elderly brothers and sisters who have a family and they're taking care of their family, they're going through struggles. We as a nation, we as an ummah are going through struggles. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. Keep struggling, keep working hard. But what type of struggle, what type of work is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us about? The type of work that keeps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in mind. The type of work that realizes the people that are doing the work, they realize that the only thing that is getting them through their life is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To realize that the focal point, to realize that our life is based on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is based on that we were created by Him, is based on that we were created by Him so that we may worship Him the proper way with no impurity. And then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us after that? وَجَتَبَاكُمْ, that I have chosen you. He has chosen you. What does that mean? What does that resemble? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen every single one of us for this deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the honor of becoming a Muslim. And yes, indeed, the honor is when we are a Muslim. The honor is when we follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Brothers and sisters, we go through struggles every single day. And I'll just mention to you one struggle of a young brother who was a drug addict who lived in Astoria and who had a difficulty abstaining from drugs. And the community did not help him as much, or the community was not equipped with the resources necessary to help that person. And because of that, his parents had to send him away to find help elsewhere in another country. And because of that, because of the resources, he had a brain stroke. He had a brain stroke where he died recently. He's only in the early 20s. How many brothers and sisters are going through this type of difficulty today? How many brothers and sisters are going through mistreatment in their homes? Mistreatment when they come to the masjid. When a young person comes to the masjid, we look at them in a certain way. When a person does not dress in a certain way, we judge them in a certain way. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that we have to struggle. Our struggle today is not just to build a building. Our struggle today is to provide the resources that is necessary for our young brothers and sisters, for our elderly, so that they can maintain an Islamic, a Muslim identity in current, contemporary New York City, United States of America. That is our struggle. And Allah is telling us, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ, that you have to work harder. Your work that you're doing, the hardness that you're applying is not hard enough. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that we can do it. Allah is telling us, وَاجْتَبَاكُمْ, I have chosen you for this task. We were chosen for this task. We were chosen to make a difference in our life, to make a difference for our families, to make a difference for our society. But then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us after that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ, that the deen, the Islam that we have, the way of life that Allah has given us, there's no difficulty. It's easy. Where is the difficulty? It's because of you, it's because of me. We create that difficulty. We make it hard for people to come to the masjid. We make it hard for people to learn about Islam. We make it hard because we're not struggling with our ego, with our nafs. We're so much about ourselves. We're so much about we know this and we know that. But we don't question what we know. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was sending the companions to give da'wah, to give and to teach people, he told them a brief message. He told them that when you go to the people, make things easy for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this same verse, after that, He tells us who should we follow. He says, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ مِلَّةَ أَبِيكُمْ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. That our way is the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Our path is the path of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Too many times when we think about Ibrahim alayhi salam, we think it's always about him sitting and he's thinking and he's looking at the stars and he's looking at the moon, and then he goes to the people and he tells them don't worship the idols. We always have this superficial ideology about Ibrahim alayhi salam. It's always about the idols. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was given a message. He goes to the people and he tells them don't worship the idols. Brothers and sisters, there is a deeper meaning to that. It's not just about the idols. Who cares about the idols? It's what the idols represent. What do they represent? They represent a system. They represent a way of life in which Ibrahim alayhi salam was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to change. And that we are responsible for. As Muslims, we were sent to change the system, to change the way people think, to revolutionize, to bring new things, to make things better, easier, much more sufficient for people. Because that's what Islam is about. That is the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and that is why every single year people go to Hajj. It's not just to do the rituals, it's not just to throw stones, but to realize that we have an enemy. To realize that the enemy is shaitan. And this enemy is very feeble and very weak. This enemy is not strong. Who tells us that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that in order to be successful, we have to go back to our roots. What is our roots? مِلَّةَ أَبِيكُمْ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. Brothers and sisters, the deen that we have, the way that we have, the footsteps that we are supposed to follow is the footsteps of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Let's talk about the phase, the first phase of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam was born in a society where people based their whole life, based their whole living on worshiping the idols. And there were two forces that were holding that society in place. The two forces was the government. The king at that time represented the government at that time. And the second force was the religious elite, the religious force. At that time, these two forces, they were working together. If the religious force, the religious elite was weak, then the government would become weak. If the government at that time was weak, then the religious people were weak. Because the religious people were the ones that worshipped the idols. The religious people were the ones that advocated to follow that system. And they were holding hands together, the government and the religious elite. They were working together in order to make sure that the people are deaf, dumb, blind, and sleeping, and so that they don't come back to the roots, they don't come back to the deen. Amongst all of this, Ibrahim alayhi salam was born, and Ibrahim alayhi salam was raised by his father, who was also an idol worshipper, but he was also an idol maker. He used to make the idols. And he had a dream for his son, which was to take upon his legacy. But Ibrahim alayhi salam, the first lesson that we attained from Ibrahim alayhi salam was, or is, that we have to question and we have to think about the society. Ibrahim alayhi salam thought about the society, thought about his life, thought about what the people were doing. And he was looking at the stars, the moon, the world. And he came into he knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the one that created everything. And when he knew that and he understood that and he was confident in that, he approached his people. Before he approached his people, at the same time he approached his father. And he went to the people and he told them, إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. That I, Ibrahim, I don't associate what you associate. I, Ibrahim, I don't follow what you follow. I don't worship those idols. Again, it wasn't just about the idols. Rather, it was about the system. He wanted to change the system. He wanted to change the way the people were thinking about the idols. The way that were living, the things that they were doing in their daily life. So the first thing that he did was approach the people. He explained to them about what he has figured out and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him towards the deen. He told them that I have the freedom. Every single person has the freedom to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second thing was the dispute. He approached his father, explained to his father about his concerns, and his father did not accept his concerns. His father did not accept him as a prophet and told him that he should leave. And we know the life of Ibrahim a.s. too well. We know when the people, when they leave, when they left for a certain ceremony, they came back and they found all the idols broken. All the idols, they were damaged. By whom? By Ibrahim a.s. So what was he doing? He was thinking like them. Another lesson that we learn is to think like the people that live here. Is to try to understand the people that we are associating with every single day. For the very word of qawm, whenever a prophet goes to his people and he says, Ya qawm, it doesn't just mean you're my people and I only know your name and that's it. No, it means that you're my people, I know your names, I know your age, I know who you are, I know how you live, I know what you think, I know what you eat, I know your culture, I know your system, I know everything about you. That is the meaning of qawm. So when Ibrahim a.s. he went to his people, he knew what he was going to say, and he knew how they were going to react, and he was ready for what the people were going to do to him. So the dispute was about the society, it was about worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has to follow in your deeds, it has to come within your deeds, in every single that you do. So when you are driving a cab, or when you are a teacher, or a plumber, whatever that you might do, you're remembering Allah and you're attaching that thought with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that you don't commit any type of injustice because your relationship, your connection is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the very first thing that the people do to him, they tell him, they bar him from the community. They tell him, you're not one of us anymore. Why? Because you're different. Why? Because you don't do the things that we do. So what happens? Ibrahim a.s. is under arrest. The community gathered, and the people in the community, they bring wood, they bring different materials, they prepare the fire, and they're ready to throw Ibrahim a.s. into the fire. The whole society was against him. The whole society became against him. But how did he react? Did he become confused? Did he stop crying? Did he start panicking, running around and say, Allah is not going to support me? Allah is testing me. Why is He testing me? I have done this and that and that and that. Was that his reaction? No. Matter of fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends the angel Jibreel alayhi salam, and Jibreel alayhi salam asks him, what would you like for us? How can I help you? He said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. He says to him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will defend me, will help me. It's a subtle way of saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect me. And we know the story too well enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed protects Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's the phase 1 of his life. And then Ibrahim alayhi salam has to leave his community and establish another community by himself as a person. And that is why he is considered a person who is or who resembles the ummah. Just one person who resembles the whole ummah. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Millata abikum Ibrahim. There are immense lessons that we can learn about Ibrahim alayhi salam from a psychological perspective, from a sociological perspective, from an economic perspective, from an anthropological perspective. You can learn from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, that Allah, according to the scholars, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the name Muslims. What does that mean? That means don't divide yourselves. That means don't call yourself something that Allah has not given to you. Don't label yourself when Allah didn't label you. When Allah only labeled you as a Muslim. A Muslim is someone who submits to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his nafs and with his body and with his thoughts. My brothers and sisters, I encourage you to read. I encourage you to understand the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And I remind myself and all of us about the verse that we started off with by saying that, number one, to strive in the cause of Allah. And to strive in the cause of Allah is not just going to and fighting. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he told the companions when they came back from a battle, he said, now you are starting a greater striving. Meaning, now you are starting a greater jihad. And jihad doesn't just mean fighting. And I know some people might think that. But it means that now you are struggling, and the greatest struggle is the jihad of the nafs. To struggle with yourself, to fight yourself, to find yourself where you stand in this society, where you stand with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you as a Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you responsibility, and you have to understand what that responsibility is. Coming to Friday Jum'ah is not enough to explain that responsibility. Number three, this deen does not have difficulty. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends or wants us or has given us a deen that is very super easy and has taken the difficulty away from us. Number four, this deen was the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And we must come back to the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And when we come back to the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam, we will be more successful. And when we come back to the way of the Prophet ﷺ, because he represented Ibrahim ﷺ, we will be more successful. We will become a community that thinks, that works hard, that doesn't sit back and relax and says, let me just relax, and let me let the brothers do the work, let me let the sisters do the work, and let me let them go to protest, and let me let them go and call the people who are responsible. And let me let the community members do whatever that they have to do. And let me just go to work and not donate and not volunteer. It is our responsibility. It is our masjid. It is our community. It is our Islam. It is our deen. It is our children that we're talking about. It is our life that we're talking about. Because we will have to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will have to answer to Him for what we have done for Him. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us understanding. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us resources. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide our youth. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر إخواننا في كل مكان. اللهم ارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم ارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. اللهم اصلح نساء المسلمين. اللهم اصلح شباب المسلمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Allah, lifting up the lines, feet shoulder to shoulder, please don't leave any gaps. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله سمع الله لمن حمده.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. الله سمع الله لمن حمده.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. We will make dua for 3 people who passed away in Egypt in a car accident. They are the relatives of Brother Abdullah. He was a community member before when Da'wah was being established. So we will make dua for him, for his relatives, inshallah. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا. اللهم من أحيي منا فأحيه على الإسلام، ومن توفيته منا فتوفه على الإيمان. اللهم اغفر لهم وارحمهم وعافهم واعف عنهم وأكرم نزلهم ووسع مدخلهم. Oh Allah, we ask you to make their questioning easy. Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive them. Oh Allah, we ask you to have mercy on them. Oh Allah, we ask you to give their family patience. Oh Allah, Rabbul Alameen, we ask you to give their family patience. Oh Allah, Rabbul Alameen, we ask you to give them Jannah. Oh Allah, we ask you to accept them as martyrs. Oh Allah, Rabbul Alameen, we ask you to accept from them. Oh Allah, we ask you to accept from them. Oh Allah, we ask you to accept all those who have passed away. Oh Allah, Rabbul Alameen, Allahumma taqabbal shuhada. اللهم تقبل شهداء. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Quick announcement, inshallah ta'ala. Monday is the start of the summer program, inshallah ta'ala. So I ask you all to please encourage your kids and your family to join us. It's from 10 in the morning to 3 p.m. We also have the Arabic classes that take place every Wednesday from 6 to 8. If you'd like to learn the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be able to read it and write from it, you should be able to take this class, and it's for free. For adults mainly from 17 and older. We also have the Quran classes for the kids from the ages 4 and up. This is the Hifz program, memorization program with Sheikh Hussein. This is every week from Monday to Thursday from 3 to 5. That's followed right after the summer program. So if you guys would like to participate in this program, please do yourself a favor. Come register your kids, inshallah ta'ala. But the summer program is full of activity and also Islamic knowledge. So do your best to register, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.